So, up to now, when we talked about producers, we've talked kind of in very general terms. But now we need to move in and look a little more closely at a market. Remember, market is simply defined as a place where buyers and sellers come together. And so, markets can be set up very differently. And so we'd like to spend this week, looking at the market structure that economists prefer, and that's called perfect competition. Now, there are 6 characteristics that are necessary in order to have perfect competition. The first is that you have many producers. There are so many producers that no individual firm by itself has any market power. It has to take the price given by the market. The second characteristic is that there are many consumers. Again, so many consumers that no individual has the power to manipulate the market. If you go to the store, you think the price of something's too high, you refuse to buy it, you walk away. Guess what? There are thousands of other people willing to buy it, right? So many producers, many consumers. The next characteristic is that we have perfect information. What this characteristic means is that everyone in the market knows the same things about the goods. All producers know all of the possible ways to produce a good. All consumers know all of the information about the good. From the producer side, this ensures that producers are going to produce at the lowest cost possible, right? There are no patents, there are no trademarks, there are no industrial secrets. Everyone knows the same thing about how to produce the product. On the consumer side, if you are looking to choose between, one cell phone and another cell phone, how do you know which one to pick? Well, you've got all the information about both of them. You pick which one you like. From the consumer's perspective, perfect information is important so that you don't have buyer's remorse. Again, we want you to maximize your utility from a good. So you need to know all the information about the good possible to make sure that you've maximized your utility. The fourth characteristic is that we have freedom of entry and exit of the market. This means that from the producer side, if you want to start the production of something, there's nothing keeping you out. If you want to stop producing, nothing's keeping you in the market. Same thing from the consumer side. You want to buy it, you don't want to buy it, that's fine. This characteristic has a very unique result. This characteristic ensures that in the long run, economic profit will be zero. Now, let's replay that. In the long run, economic profit will be zero. Now, this sounds strange to people the first time they hear it. But what you have to keep in mind is when an economist talks about profit, what they're talking about is the money that you make. As an economist, I include in the calculation of profit that amount of money you must make in order to stay in business. So when I'm saying you're making zero economic profit, you're making just what you need to stay in business, no more, no less. So that can be different. Economic profit can be different than accounting profit. Sometimes you hear of a company going bankrupt and they made $29 million last year. And you're going, are they greedy? If they made $29 million last year, why are they going out of business? Well, because they thought they should have made $35 million. And they can't make any changes. They've tried to make more and they can't. So it's just not worth staying in business. This is going to be important to us. So keep this characteristic of freedom of entry and exit in your mind. The fifth characteristic of perfect competition is that we have homogeneous goods. By homogeneous goods, we mean that all of the producers produce an identical product, or a product that's so identical that consumers really can't tell or don't care the difference between buying it from one producer and buying it from another producer. This is a very important characteristic because as a consumer, think about going to the store to buy bottled water. When you look at all those different brands of bottled water, how do you choose which one to buy? Well, since you do not have brand loyalty, since they all appear to be identical to you, you're going to pick the cheapest one. And so, with the fact that you have many producers, you have many consumers, along with homogeneous goods, these characteristics together are going to push the market to provide the lowest priced product possible. Now, the last characteristic of perfect competition is that there are no externalities in the market. An externality is an unintended output of production for which a producer does not pay nor is compensated for. So an externality is something a producer makes. They either don't pay the full cost of it or they don't get the full benefit of it. Now that's a problem. If there are externalities in the market, who's paying that extra cost if the producer's not? Who's getting the extra benefit if the producer's not? All right, that presents an issue for us. If you recall, when you talked about this in macro, pollution is a classic example of a negative externality. A negative externality is something that a producer pays and doesn't pay for. So producer produces pollution, doesn't clean it up. Who has to bear that cost? Well, we as society bear that cost. We either get sick or we have to pay to clean it up. Right? Now, when we're looking at market structures, we assume that the producer pays all the cost and receives all the benefit. And that's going to be very important. And I'll tell you why in a moment. Now, when we're looking at perfect competition, we're looking at the product market. We're looking at the market for final goods and services. So now, as a producer, you're trying to decide how much of a good to make. So we go back to that cost benefit analysis that we talked about earlier. And this time, instead of marginal revenue product, we're looking at marginal revenue. Marginal revenue is defined as the change in revenue which occurs when you change output. All right, different than marginal revenue product because that was change in input. But marginal revenue is the change in revenue which occurs when you change output. So that's the additional benefit of producing an additional unit of the good. The additional cost is marginal cost. And marginal cost is defined as the change in total cost that occurs when you change output. So in this cost-benefit analysis, we now have on one side of the scale marginal revenue, on the other side of the scale marginal cost. So now we have to look at how does a producer, an individual firm under perfect competition, decide how much to produce and how much to charge. So we now have those characteristics of perfect competition and we have to see how they play out in this market. All right, so let's see how a producer makes their decisions. First thing we need to know is how are we going to maximize our profit? Where is that going to occur? So let's think about the demand curve. What kind of demand curve is this firm facing? Well, it's actually facing a horizontal demand curve. The firm is facing perfectly elastic demand. So they end up with a horizontal demand curve. And what they also know is their marginal revenue curve is the same curve as their demand curve. That's important because that only occurs under perfect competition. So if you see a market structure and the demand curve is horizontal, you know that it is a perfectly competitive firm. So let's add in our marginal cost curve. And now we have two possibilities here. Let's look at Q1. If we choose to produce at Q1, what's the additional revenue we receive at Q1? If we make that last unit of a good, how much do we make? That last unit of the good is going to make us this amount of money. But how much is it going to cost to make that last unit? Well, if we go down to our marginal cost curve and read the value over, this is our marginal cost. So the Q first unit of the good made us this much, but cost us this much. So that was a good unit to produce, right? The last unit made us more than what it cost us. So let's get greedy. Let's go all the way over to produce at Q2. And let's see what happens there. All right, at Q2, we are again, go up to the marginal revenue curve, read the value off there. That's how much, that's our marginal revenue. That's what that last unit made us. But if you go up at Q2, what is it costing us? It's costing us marginal cost too. It's costing us this much. So it's that last unit made us this much, but cost us this much. Was that a good choice? No, we're going to make less. So if you're at Q1, the pressure is to make more. If you're at Q2, the pressure is to make less. Where is there no pressure? If you produce where marginal revenue equals marginal cost right here, that's where we're going to maximize our profit. Okay, so look at this graph for a second, understand why it looks the way we do. And the question that should come to your mind is, okay, we've now maximized our profit, but is our profit positive, negative, or zero? Run out of time on this lecture. Let's go to the next one.